I left my husband, destroyed my family, and chased after a man of God, my pastor. I thought I was running toward love, peace, and something holy, but what I ran into was darkness, scandal, and shame. I thought I was chasing God, but I ended up losing everything. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, God did the unthinkable. Hey friends, before I tell you what happened in that pastor's office, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below, and please, share your thoughts as the story unfolds. You won't believe where this ends. My name is Melissa. I'm a 42-year-old mother of two, and I live in a quiet suburb just outside of Dallas, Texas. On the outside, I had the kind of life most people would admire: a stable marriage, 2 beautiful children, a lovely home, and a steady rhythm of church every Sunday. My husband, David, is a good man. Hardworking. Loyal. Steady. But if I'm being honest, we'd stopped being us years before the scandal ever happened. He was always working, always fixing, always building something, but never really seeing me. I felt like I was just part of the furniture, functional, but forgotten. Church became my escape. It was quiet, structured, full of worship songs that made my soul ache for something deeper. And then, there was Pastor Jonathan. He wasn't like the other pastors I had known: young, passionate, full of energy and fire. He spoke with a kind of authority that made you lean in. And when he looked at you, it was like he really saw you. Not just the face you put on for the world, but the hidden version, bruised and wanting. At first, it was harmless. He offered to pray with me after service. He'd ask about my kids. Then one evening, after Bible study, I told him about how distant David had become. How I felt invisible in my own home. That night, I cried for the first time in front of another man. Looking back now, I can see how it started. It wasn't sudden, it was a slow, subtle drift. A whispered compliment here. A lingering glance there. Prayers that lasted a little too long. I should have known. I should have walked away. But I didn't. The emotional affair began before anything physical ever happened. We started texting, then meeting during the week to talk. His words made me feel chosen. He told me I was special, misunderstood, and that he saw God's purpose in me. I started dressing up for church again, putting on makeup not for my husband, but for my pastor. It makes me sick now, but back then, it felt like someone had finally turned the lights on in a dark room. David noticed. Of course, he did. He asked questions, but I always brushed him off. You're just being paranoid, I'd say. He's a man of God. He's counseling me. But deep down, I knew what I was doing. And it only got worse. One night, after a church event, Pastor Jonathan asked me to help him clean up. It was just the two of us in the fellowship hall. That's the night the line was crossed. He kissed me. And I let him. I drove home that night in silence, my heart pounding in my ears. I didn't sleep. I looked at David lying in bed next to me, snoring softly, completely unaware that his wife had already started drifting away from him. Days turned into weeks. One night, while our kids were at youth group and David was working late, I found myself in Pastor Jonathan's office again. That night, I did the unthinkable. I gave him what I had promised on my wedding day I'd never give to anyone else. And after that, I couldn't live with the lie anymore. I told David I was leaving. I didn't tell him who I was leaving for, but he figured it out soon enough. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just looked at me, eyes wide with something like heartbreak and disbelief, and said, I always thought it would be someone else, but not him. I moved out the next day. My kids wouldn't speak to me. My parents stopped calling. I lost every friend I had at church. But I told myself it was worth it. I was in love. And love was worth the sacrifice. At least, that's what I thought. But what happened next in the pastor's office, no one could have seen coming. I wish I could tell you that leaving my husband and chasing love with a man of God led to joy, peace, or at least something meaningful. But that would be a lie. After I left David, I moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment not far from the church. I thought Jonathan and I would finally be together in the open, that there'd be no more sneaking around or stolen glances in the hallway. For the first few days, it felt like a dream. He brought me flowers, helped unpack boxes, prayed with me in the mornings, and made me promises at night. But the whispers started immediately. People talk, especially in churches. The news spread like wildfire. Melissa left her husband, for him. I became the woman they pointed at during service. I stopped going altogether, too ashamed to face their eyes, especially the women's. The same ladies who used to hold my hand during prayer now turned their backs. The leadership board at church confronted Jonathan within a week. They didn't have solid proof, but the rumors were enough. He denied everything, of course, but I could see the weight building in his eyes. He stopped smiling the way he used to. His phone rang constantly. His sermons grew cold and mechanical. We began fighting, about the church, about the silence between us, about how he didn't come over as often anymore. And then came the worst part. My kids. My daughter, Emma, who was just 16, told me through tears that she never wanted to see me again. "You broke Daddy," she said over the phone. My son, Caleb, barely said a word. He just hung up after whispering, "Why, Mom?" I cried every night. Alone. No husband. No kids. No friends. And a man who once called me his blessing now barely returned my texts. It all came crashing down on a rainy Tuesday morning. I was cleaning the kitchen, trying to bake banana bread to feel normal again, when my phone rang. It was one of the deacons from church. His voice was trembling. "Melissa." I didn't know who else to call. "Jonathan, Pastor Jonathan, he collapsed this morning at his home. The paramedics, they tried everything." I stood there frozen. He didn't have to say the rest. I already knew. Jonathan was dead. A heart attack, they said. Stress-induced. The pressure from the scandal, the threats to remove him from the pulpit, the weight of leading a double life, it all finally crushed him. I dropped the bowl on the floor and screamed. I slid down the kitchen cabinet and curled into myself, shaking. I thought I had lost everything before, but this was worse. The man I left everything for was gone. Just like that. His family didn't want me at the funeral. His wife, yes, wife. The truth was, he had been in the process of divorcing her but hadn't finalized anything. She sat in the front pew, her face pale and tight with pain, surrounded by their grown children. I stood in the back, barely able to breathe. People whispered. They always whispered. "She's the reason. It's her fault. God judged them." Whether it was true or not, it stuck like tar to my soul. After the service, I drove to a nearby motel and checked in. I couldn't go back to the apartment. I couldn't go anywhere. I just lay there, on a stained mattress in a dim, stuffy room, staring at the ceiling fan turning slow like my thoughts. I didn't eat. I didn't shower. I didn't pray. I thought about ending it. The guilt was that loud. I had betrayed a man who loved me. I had walked out on my children. I had thrown away my place in a community that once nurtured me. And the man I destroyed it all for, was in a casket. That night, I got on my knees beside the motel bed. I hadn't prayed in weeks. Not really. My words came out shaky, ugly, broken. God, are you even listening to me? I messed up. I messed up so bad. I don't deserve grace, I don't even deserve to be alive. But if there's anything left in me worth saving, please. Please, do something. I'm so tired of running. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something. Not a rush of peace. Not joy. Not even forgiveness. Just a quiet silence that wasn't empty. It felt like God was in the room, not speaking, not judging, just being there with me in the ruins of my choices. It was the beginning. A crack of light in a wall of darkness. I didn't know it then, but that night in the motel would be the start of a long journey back. Not to my old life, because that was gone. But to something else. Something even I couldn't imagine. God wasn't done. And what he did next changed everything. Grief is a strange thing. It doesn't follow a schedule. It hits you when you're pouring cereal or folding laundry or stuck at a red light. After Jonathan's funeral, I went back to the apartment briefly, but it didn't feel like home. I was just a shell of a woman, sitting among memories I didn't want to remember anymore. That night in the motel, the night I knelt on that stained carpet and cried out to God, something shifted. Not immediately, but gently, like a curtain being pulled back just a little to let in light. I didn't hear his voice. I didn't get a sign. But for the first time in months, I wasn't trying to run or fix or hide. I was just still. A week later, I packed up the apartment and left town. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I found a quiet place in a small town 3 hours away, near a lake I used to visit with my parents as a child. I rented a cabin there, tucked away in the woods. No distractions. No gossip. Just me and God. And that's when the real breaking began. Every day I woke up early, sat by the water, and wrote in a journal. I poured out my regrets like ink. The things I'd said, the lies I told, the hurt I caused David, Emma, and Caleb. I wrote letters to them all, never mailed, but needed to say the words. Sometimes, I screamed into the trees. Sometimes, I just sobbed and let the silence hold me. It was raw. It was ugly. But healing isn't clean. One rainy afternoon, I got a message from David. My heart jumped just seeing his name. It had been nearly 2 months of complete silence. His words were short. Heard you moved. Hope you're safe. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes, then typed back, I am. I'm sorry, David. For everything. He didn't respond. Not then. But I didn't need him to. That message was like a drop of water in a desert. It reminded me that I wasn't forgotten. That maybe, someday, redemption was possible. A few weeks later, something unthinkable happened. I was walking through the town's local farmer's market, just trying to feel human again, when I heard someone call my name. Melissa? I turned. It was her. Jonathan's wife. I froze. She looked older than I remembered. Tired. Her skin pale, eyes holding the kind of grief I was all too familiar with. I thought it was you, she said gently. I didn't know what to say. My heart thudded in my chest. I felt like running, but my feet wouldn't move. I'm sorry, I stammered. She walked closer. I hated you, she whispered. I wanted to destroy you. Blame you for everything. But I've come to understand something. I stood silent, trembling. You didn't ruin my marriage, she said. Jonathan did that long before you. You were a part of his fall, yes. But we were already broken. I stayed because I didn't want to be alone. Tears welled up in my eyes. I'm sorry, I choked. I never meant. I know, she said softly. I came here because I heard you were nearby. I prayed about it for weeks. God wouldn't let me rest until I found you. I broke down. Right there in front of the bread stand. I wept like a child. She held me. She held me. The woman whose life I helped destroy, held me. That was grace. Unexplainable. Undeserved. Unfair, and yet, so beautiful. We talked for hours that day. Not about Jonathan, not really. About pain. About choices. About healing. We even prayed together by the lake that evening. 2 broken women, shattered by the same man, yet redeemed by the same God. From that day on, I started to truly believe that God wasn't finished with me. I went back to school, online, studying counseling, especially for women recovering from betrayal, infidelity, and religious trauma. I began volunteering at a women's shelter. I didn't tell them my story at first. But eventually, I did. And they listened. Because pain recognizes pain. And healing loves company. 3 months later, David called. He asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. I almost said no. But something inside nudged me gently. So I said yes. We sat across from each other in a quiet cafe. He looked older, like I had stolen years from his life. I probably had. I don't hate you, he said quietly. That broke me more than any scream ever could. I don't know if we'll ever be the same, he added. But I do believe in restoration. For both of us. We didn't get back together, not yet, anyway. But we talk now. Slowly. Cautiously. Emma even sent me a message on Mother's Day. Just 3 words, still love you. It was enough. Maybe we won't be a family again the way we were. But maybe, just maybe, God is writing a new story out of our broken pages. Not a perfect one. But one filled with grace, redemption, and quiet hope. If you're still listening to this story, thank you. I don't know what kind of mess you've made. I don't know what regrets you're carrying. But I promise you this, God isn't scared of your ruins. He specializes in turning ashes into beauty. He did it for me. He can do it for you too.